Well, ladies and gentlemen, this will bring us into our final session here of the day. So I would like to welcome our team to join us up here on stage as we move to the Future Leaders Outlook. We are bringing to the stage right now, bear with me a second, Jessica Ramchund, Corey Wilson, Wafa Bala, Adam Białowski, and that's it, I believe. Yes, excellent. There we go. So we'll get our whole team to just join us here on stage. I believe Jessica will give us a more of an introduction, but we will speedily move to our next session if we can. I might get you to do that, dear. Thank you.
A very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Future Leaders Outlook session. We're going to be presenting a perspective of the future workforce that wants to work from the beach. Thanks, Greg, for the introduction. Once again, my name is Jessica Ramchand. I'm a civil engineer with Bosch Projects, representing Consulting Engineers South Africa, GAMA, and the FIDIC YPF Steering Committee. This is quite a momentous conference for the development of future leaders of our industry. Also to be afforded the exceptional opportunity to host an Outlook session within the main FIDIC conference. This also allows us an opportunity to offer our perspectives on the conference deliberations and the issues affecting our industry. And this afternoon, we invite you to join us on a journey on the art of the possible, envisioning and co-creating the industry and the profession of the future. Countless times we're told by senior management and leadership that they're trying to do the best with what they have, and that they didn't create the mess that they've inherited. And never before have we, as individuals in an industry, ever been as integrated and vocal about industry issues as we are right now. So where previous generations were not adequately consulted, they didn't have the opportunities, technologies, or the enablers that we have access to right now, we have the generational responsibility as participants at the table to seize the opportunities as they present themselves. To shape the industry so that we're not the CEOs who complain about what we've inherited, but rather that we become the socially and environmentally aware and adaptable professionals that we ought to be. We're cognizant of the technology disruptions to our industry, the growth of startups and digital nomads as we've experienced in Oliver's presentation on the workforce of the future, that also undermines the very fabric of a traditional profession. If you recall the statistics of yesterday, where construction was depicted as the second slowest to adapt to technological change, and that's leading only agriculture. This also trails profitability concerns from the CEO's panel on boardroom perspectives. So the environment is ripe for change, and for the change that we're looking for. And we say that we need to create this enabling environment. But what does it really look like? Who's the custodian of this enabling environment? And how does the future of work impact this? And how will generation X, Y, and Z integrate? So in trying to contextualize these challenges on this backdrop, the FIDIC YPF Steering Committee conducted a survey to get varying perspectives on some issues around future leaders, what they want, what they need, readiness for technological adaptation, integrity, and risk. So I'm not going to go into details on the survey, but rather just to show you that the demographic responses to the slides, as you can see, a large response from Africa and Asia, followed by the age profile of the respondents, with a large percentage of respondents being young professionals. So you'll see through our discussions, we'll make reference to the survey, some of the trends that have come through. Being the technology lovers that we are, I'd like for you to take out your smartphones and help me with two polls. We're going to do these polls go into our speaker perspectives, and then come back and analyze some of the results of these polls. So if you could get out your apps. Poll 1. What are the most impactful enablers for YPs to be more active in the engineering industry? We're going to go into this. Training and knowledge sharing, workplace experience, international exposure on projects or conferences and networking activities, or opportunities to grow the business industry. So you'll see we've got our timer going at the bottom of the screen. Poll results locked. Thank you. Second poll, in terms of diversity, is there diversity of age, gender, culture in your firm's decision-making structures? That's at the level of executive board or executive committees. Yes, no, or we have plans to diversify and to be inclusive. We're going to go into that right now. And poll results locked. Very encouraging responses coming out of that poll. We'll come back to discuss some of the findings of the survey, also some of the results from the polls of the last 2 days. We're going to go on to our panel, and so part of the discussion around what we need requires a diversity of opinion. So I have before me 3 members of the FIDIC YPF steering committee. So I'll introduce them and we'll get straight onto it. We have first up Adam Biaczowski, a Harvard graduate, managing partner at Vintage Consulting, Poland. This FIDIC YPF steering committee member is responsible for budgeting, contract statistics, task group, and the conference booklet that you would have received in your conference bags. Corey Wilson, Divisional Manager at McElhenney, Canada, FIDIC YPF Steering Committee member responsible for the YP Awards and Business Practice Committee, and Wafa Ahmed, Contract Administrator at Techno Consultancy, Sudan, responsible for social media and our newsletters. We're going to get straight into it. Adam?
Thank you, Jessica. It's always a dangerous decision to give a young Polish guy the microphone at a public speaking engagement in Germany. You never know what he might say. So that makes me very grateful for the invitation here. Thank you to the German Association. Thank you to FIDIC. Vielen Dank für die Einladung. Vielen Dank für die tolle Konferenz. I would even go as far as to say, ich bin ein Berliner, but that would be pushing it. So thank you very much. I was asked to present some statistics that we have collected in our young professional survey, mention some of the initiatives that were mentioned during the conference, and also to provide some perspective, and the time limit I got for that was 5 minutes, so I'm going to go straight into it. Often when we sit at our desks, I run a family business consultancy, so often when I'm sitting at my desk trying to win tenders for price-based selection, I'm in the here and now and in the past, not in the future. What this conference has shown that the future will be one doing just the opposite than just sitting at our desks and doing copy-paste in our computers. So I appreciate that. One of the questions that we ask our young professional members, around 150 responses, was what are emerging technologies are impacting how you run your business? So up to 70% answered it's BIM, new design software based on cloud computing. And only 30% asked that it's new materials, new technical things that are new on-site recycling things. So this gives you something to think about. Also, if you compare this with the answers that we received for the familiarity of the FIDIC publications, you see that 60% of us know the Rainbow Suite, we know the service agreements, and only 30% of us know risk management, project sustainability, or integrity management. So I'd like you to think about it in the context of the previous response, that we know the hard stuff, we know the old stuff, we know the contract stuff, but we are not familiar with risk management, integrity management, project sustainability, which is the stuff that actually matters when we deliver our job. So innovation is a state of mind. When we asked our young professionals to identify the next steps, the next technological advances that will be impacting our business, this we didn't know. The answers were spread across the board equally between 3D printing, automated construction, all evenly spread. So when we talk about mobility as the infrastructure, as our conference team, we have both physical mobility and social mobility. As the young Y generation, we are in a great position to use the synergy of the fact that we are the most technical savvy generation of our time, since none of us remember the world without computers. Most of us don't remember the world without internet. Combine this with this dream our generation has of what the previous speaker mentioned of designing bridges in the Maldives while drinking a beer. I think this can produce some great results, because you will need to use technology efficiently in order to be able to achieve our dreams. However, this does possess a great risk. If you look at the bird on the right, I think it represents our generation. The bird is cool, the bird is stoic, the bird forgot to do one important thing. This is great risk comes with our generation and our use of technology. This compared to the old, let's say, materials that are produced by FIDIC, not old, I don't want to say old, I want to say the hard materials that do not encompass the way the new business is being done, I think, in my opinion and in the opinion of the Young Professional Survey. I think this produces an opportunity for FIDIC to provide some solutions that aren't there yet and that the market will be willing to accept. Now, if you look at the booklet that we produced, it was 15 countries that got together over Skype, over Google Docs, and produced a document that the project was small. It was 80 hours, man-hours, I would guess. I would use this as an analogy to delivering engineering consultancy via the different platforms that we have, different cultures that we have. So it's happening right now. Even as we speak, young professionals within FIDIC are organizing, they are bidding for projects together, they're winning large infrastructural projects together by having small, specialized engineering consultancies getting together in Poland, Romania, Latvia, Estonia. We've tried some in Africa. So it's already happening. And I think FIDIC, whether you like it or not, has become the Uber of consulting engineering. So I would like you to consider this, especially if you are a CEO of a large company, because this is a trend that might affect larger companies. It's an enabler for young professionals that have dreams and want to be in the Maldives. So thank you very much. I ask for your guidance from FIDIC to tunnel this energy, and maybe we can discuss this a bit later because my time is about to be up. So thank you very much. Vielen Dank.
Thanks, Adam. And thanks to all of you for attending today. Good afternoon and greetings from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. It's an honor to get to speak with all of you today. So the original concept for my presentation today was I was supposed to talk about some of the key themes of the conference and give you some of the perspectives of the young professionals as they relate to those topics. What I realized was the first thing I was supposed to talk about was smart mobility, and we've had some really great presentations over the last couple of days. It's been covered really well by a lot of people that are much smarter than me, so I decided I'm not going to cover that. The second part of my presentation was supposed to be to talk about our perspectives on sustainability. Again, we've had really good coverage on this topic at this conference and last year, so I'm not going to talk about that either. And the reason for that is one of the things that piqued my interest during some of the previous presentations was to talk about talent acquisition and retention. And I thought this was a really good forum where we could bring some of the young professional perspectives on that topic to a very wide audience. So that's what we changed the presentation to this morning. So as a part of I have a lot of interest in talent acquisition and retention, but I didn't want to bring just my perspective to this conversation. So I went out and tried to talk to the YPs in attendance and get their perspective on things so I could give a bit of a holistic summary of what they see as being important. So I went out to talk to some of the YPs. One of the things I noticed is a lot of the presentations during the last few days have had some really slick videos, so I had to go get one of mine. And this was me going to talk to the young professionals. So, joking aside, our representation of young professionals at this conference isn't this bad, but we can certainly do a lot better in getting more young professionals to attend. We've talked a lot about diversity in the last couple of days. As I look around the conference, I can't help but notice that YPs are still relatively underrepresented. So I talked to a lot of the young professionals and asked why they thought this might be. And the general consensus was that there was a lack of support, both financially and for their time, to attend industry events such as this conference. And one of the things that really surprised me was that many of the young professionals that are at this conference are here on their own dime, and they're here on their own time. So we digged a little bit deeper to find out what are the factors that are impacting the ability to get support. And one of the obvious ones was the problem with limited training and budgets. And one of the things that we wanted to really emphasize to some of the senior management that's in attendance today is that it's not just technical knowledge that we're gaining at these type of activities, but you're investing in your people and in your companies. One of the questions I posed to the group was, what are some of the benefits that you've got out of your participation in industry and particularly at this event? And some of the key themes that came up during those conversations were they felt appreciated, supported, respected, and most importantly, the number one thing they mentioned was that they felt empowered. And the reason that I bring this up was I had a follow-up question, and that was, what are some of the characteristics of a firm that would interest you in going to work for them? And when they talked about that list, they wanted a firm that was going to appreciate them, support them, respect them, and empower them. So, if you have a star performer that you really want to hold on to, supporting and encouraging them to get involved in industry participation is a really good place to start. Yes, there's a cost associated with this, both in the time and the cost to attend things like this conference, but it pales in comparison to the cost of trying to replace a star performer. There's a lot of other benefits as well. There's a lot of networking that goes on, so your young professionals are getting to meet partners and clients. Some of the YPs that I've talked to have been networking till 3 or 4 in the morning this week. So, they're really diligent employees there doing some great things. And one thing that I think gets underestimated as one of the benefits is the increased productivity you're getting from your employees that are coming back feeling motivated, engaged, and inspired. We talked a bit about some of the challenges with talent acquisition and what was important to them. They said money is important, but it's not everything. It wasn't the primary driver for who they were looking for in an employer. They were just looking for fair wages. It was very important to them that they got to work on interesting and challenging projects. And again, that term empowerment came up again and again. The young professionals wanted to be more than just a number. They wanted to build a name for themselves and a reputation, and they wanted to be involved in the development or business development process. And there's also quite a few comments regarding shareholders and wanting to be able to invest in their company and have their company invest in them. When it came to retaining talent, they did acknowledge that, loyalty is not what it once was. And when digging further into that and to ask why, it seemed that they were concerned that they were seen as replaceable. And if the company didn't have a commitment in them, how were they to have a commitment in their company? They felt that the days of the lifer are gone. 10 to 20 years ago, employees would work for 10, 20, 30 years, and that's just not happening as much anymore. And part of it was they felt that young professionals don't fear change. To quote one of the presentations from yesterday, they're comfortable being uncomfortable, and they're excited about new opportunities, not threatened by it. And when it came to what would keep them at their firm, they said, invest in your people. They want to be invested in by their company. They want their colleagues to be invested in so that they're working with a strong team. I did want to acknowledge a lot of the positive things that FIDIC has done for the young professionals. I was hoping to go through this, but for the sake of time, I won't go through. But these are just a number of initiatives that FIDIC is doing to help promote their young professionals. Through the conversations we had, we did identify a few opportunities we'd like to put forward to everyone. When it comes to FIDIC, it was felt that there is the opportunity for increased representation on some of the executive committees. That's happening, and it looks very promising to continue. There was a noted lack of young professional participation in some of the panels, as well as some of the award juries. When it comes to the consulting firms, it was definitely felt that there could be more support for employees to get involved in industry activities. And then finally, the member associations. A lot of member associations are really good at sponsoring and giving scholarships to young professionals to attend things like this, and we hope that that continues to other associations as well. With that, I'll pass it over to Wafa. Thank you.
Thank you, Koi. Hello, everybody. It was just given like 5 minutes to talk about 100 topics. So I would like to start with my first presentation. Okay, I'll start with putting a spotlight on the UN Sustainable Development Goal number 5, in which they stated that the goal number 5 is achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls, with the main target of ending forms of discrimination against women anywhere and eliminating forms of violence, harmful practices. However, women are often underrepresented in the field of engineering, both professional and academic fields. This underrepresentation was affected by a lot of factors such as gender stereotyping, lower rates of female engineers or female students in the engineering degree programs, and also it was affected by the engineering culture. For example, some women in engineering have found that it is difficult to re-enter the workforce after a period of time because men are less likely to take off times. Anyhow, my point of view is that outnumbered or less numbers in the field does not mean unwelcomed, and anything is possible. And we women don't need to change who we are just to fit in. What we can only ask for is the support from the leading industry leaders to empower women and to fill all the gaps, starting from the employment, leadership, and pay gaps for women, and any other issues facing us as women in the field. And we need to ensure that women are fully effective in the field, and they have full and effective participation and equal opportunities for leadership at all levels and decision making. We also need to give them equal rights, and we need to adopt and strengthen sound policies and enforceable legislations for the promotion of gender equality and for women empowerment in all levels. Maybe this is like 1 minute about the topic, but it just highlights what we need. I will also take you through another topic which needs our help and support. It's the YP needs. It at some point relates to the topic of women. We are, the young professionals are also maybe less represented in the field. I can also go back to the poll presented by Jessica, in which 60% of the respondents agreed, almost 60% of the respondents agreed that the most powerful or the most impactful enablers for the young professionals are the training and knowledge sharing, and also giving them opportunities to share in the business, which take us immediately to think about the young professionals' needs. Also, during our survey that Jessica mentioned before, we were asking about we were asking the YPs about their opinion about the performance and achievements. Are they underestimated or under-evaluated? And we had like 70% of the respondents agreed that their performance are underestimated or at some point under-evaluated. And to achieve our goal for enabling the YPs to take the lead in the engineering industry, we have to work on the YP needs, which can be summarized as the training and knowledge platforms, the empowerment, the experience, and international exposure and opportunities, and we need to give them trust. That's all about the YP's needs, which leads me to my third topic, which relates to the YP needs, which is the capacity building. The capacity building is defined by Wikipedia as the process by which individuals and organizations obtain, improve, and retain the skills, knowledge, tools, equipments, and other resources needed to do their jobs competently or to greater capacity, which means larger scale, larger audience, and larger impact. So, appropriate capacity development is important for the industry to maintain best practice and high-quality service, which are sustainable, advocating the critical importance of the engineering to economic growth. However, capacity building was always considered one of the core objectives of FIDIC. Sorry. Okay. She says 1 minute. Capacity building was always considered one of the core objectives for FIDIC to promote and assist the worldwide development of valuable consulting engineering industry. What we rely or what we really need to do, or what we really need from FIDIC, is to continue the help and support for and the assistance for the member associations and to support the emerging consulting engineers or consulting firms with a very special concentration on women and young professionals. I would like just to quote something from FIDIC 2015 conference, which was held in Dubai. During the capacity building forum, Mr. Ben Novak mentioned that, I'm quoting, "A consulting firm's most valued asset are its staff. Computers and desks are not useful anymore." So, okay, this is the last one, the business integrity, which also relates to our contribution to YPs and women. During our survey, we had a question about the external influences on business integrity. And the responses were like, the external influences are corruption, local culture, politics, conflict of interest, and unclear, for example, bidding procedures. We also asked the respondents about if their companies have a code of conduct, and luckily 70% of the respondents have code of conduct in their companies. And also, the implications of not complying with the code of conduct, they were aware of that it might lead to disciplinary actions by management. It might lead to job termination, and it might ruin the reputation of those who are not complying with the code of conduct. So, shall I stop? Okay, thank you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Wafa. Thanks to Corey and Adam as well. So we're going to go into a quick panel discussion and then open up the floor for some questions. As the moderator, I have the privilege of asking some of my own questions. So I'm going to go to Adam first. Adam, you talked about about us being on the crux of an Uber of engineering at FIDIC. Just on the backdrop of innovation, we talked about lean, agile, and outcome and solution-driven tasks. Can you tell us what you mean by FIDIC being the Uber of engineering?
I think FIDIC has provided a platform for many young professionals that run their own businesses or run medium-sized companies to cooperate and integrate in order to win certain jobs and projects and be more competitive in the market without the overhead of some other companies. I've heard during the discussions we had at the conference that over 800 young professionals graduated from the Young Management Training Program. So it's a huge network. Somebody somewhere wrote that you only need 7 people to know to get to somebody you want to get to. So if you know 800 people from the young professionals of FIDIC, you probably know the entire industry. So that's what I meant by Uber of engineering. And I think our generation is also ready to be self-employed. I've read an article that we are the generation that is very eager to become self-employed and not work the 9 to 5 in corporations. So I think FIDIC could take this as an opportunity and help the young professionals develop. So.
Just quickly on that, going back to the question that Bern was asking earlier, was the role of experience in becoming a seasoned professional and moving from the level of graduate to expert. Do you think that that's a threat to the quality of services that we could provide? It seems nice to have a business that we run out of Starbucks, but how will that affect quality?
Yeah, I think I also noticed in FIDIC, some senior experts also, when they start getting involved in FIDIC, their role in their companies are also slightly, let's say, diminishing. They become senior experts. So I think this gives them an opportunity for certain involvement with young professionals on not only FIDIC, but on a professional level, where without the senior experts, we cannot deliver the projects that are large and complicated.
So you've envisaged cross-pollination of teams.
Exactly.
Which
Via
is
the FIDIC Uber network.
Which is a good opportunity. Thank you, Adam. Clary, you talked a little bit about incentives and equity and companies being one that you touched on, with talent being so fluid and with the attempt to reduce migration of talent. Can you just unpack a little bit about what you mean, and if you have personal experience on that?
Yeah, I do have a personal experience. Unlike Adam, I'm not quite ready to be self-employed yet. I do like working with a team. I've worked for a publicly traded firm in the past, and I'm now part of an employee-owned firm. I really like that model. I get to invest in my company, and I feel they're invested in me. My fellow shareholders and the people that are leading the company are people that understand the business and understand what I'm going through. So I still like that aspect. I'm not ready to reach out on my own. So.
Well, with lots of companies being publicly traded or privately owned, but without equity for employees, surely there can be some other incentives, other drivers. Do you have any ideas on that? Any thoughts on that?
Maybe not on the drivers, but you mentioned that a lot of companies have, they are employee-owned, but those shares are going to a lot of the senior executives and staff. One of the things I like with our company is that the shareholding is spread out very wide, including younger professionals. So I was able to get shares at a very young age. And I think it's great for retention and getting other great staff, which helps me in my day-to-day life. Knowing that I got a great team, I can go home at 5 o'clock and see my family and not have to work more than 60 hours a week. So there are some benefits.
Thanks, Corey. Wafa, I have a question for you. As a woman, as a female engineer myself, obviously I agree with quite a lot of what you said. I read an article and just recently, the World Economic Forum cites that 5% of North American firms only 5% have female CEOs. But there's also evidence that when a female is appointed as a CEO, she stays in that position for longer than when compared to a male CEO. So if evidence suggests that when a woman is given a level of a senior position within a company, why do we still see a glass ceiling for competent women to get into the C-suite? And perhaps this is not targeted at Wafa, but you can also take a stab at it, guys.
So I think it is just about just giving them like equal opportunities and giving them what do we call it? Equal chances, equal opportunities, and empowerment. And maybe settled legislations can be one way of doing it. So, if I got you, policies, legislations, and yeah. Okay.
Any of you want to take a stab at it, Kari, Adam?
No, but maybe a related
Suggestion?
question. I know we're trying to improve our gender diversity. One of the things I haven't heard a lot talked about, at least in the last couple of days here, is how can we encourage more women to get into engineering in the first place? At least in Canada, I don't have stats on me, but the numbers going in to begin with are very low. And it seems like we need to start targeting that if we want to get better diversity in the future.
So improvement of the pipeline. That was also reiterated, well, that was initially put on the table during the CEO perspectives from the boardroom. So that is obviously something that's quite useful. Just something of interest on the gender diversity aspect. We following the discussions on perspectives from the boardroom yesterday. We've had quite a lot of discussions about what we can do to create a more gender diverse profession, gender diverse industry, and we had some discussions with EC member Aisha Nadar on a FIDIC stance on gender diversity. And what she recommended is that we begin a consultative process that becomes more solutions driven in terms of looking at diversity and inclusivity. So we're looking at the creation of a task force that basically contextualizes what the industry actually requires, so that it's not just some kind of, it's not a women empowerment rally that needs to happen. It's to open up a conversation. So we're going to take to social media, and this is an invite to males and females alike. If you're interested in participating in the conversation on diversity, this is diversity and inclusivity of gender across age, business size, the small business, large business. I think that you can contact us on our social media platforms with the hashtag #CountMeIn, and you'll be contacted to become part of this conversation. And I think also just to credit Aisha on opening up that line of conversation, so thank you. We're going to go to the floor for some questions, comments, and also so that we can, we see quite a lot of hands already.
We have literally 5 minutes in the program. So quick, the questions, make them questions, please, rather than statements. Okay.
Hello? Is it okay? Yeah.
Yes.
Great speech, Adam, about Uber in FIDIC. And just questions, 2 questions. And one, yeah. The first one is, if actually disruption is right now going on in FIDIC, what would you say that will happen to FIDIC, or how FIDIC will be reorganized within a couple of years? And the second question is also general, because there was a lot of talks about disruption and technology, about IPD projects delivery, about BIM, and etc. And unfortunately, in my opinion, the FIDIC contracts do not fit so much as well, this sort of stuff. So we can see that FIDIC is here, and at the bottom comes this disruption. And on the other hand, we have maybe not so fitting contracts to what's coming. So what's your opinion about that?
Thank you, Marcin. Despite him being from Poland, I can promise you the questions weren't placed. So the disruption on FIDIC right now, I think it's hard for me to answer, especially since in our sessions, even with the EC, we were discussing this with as young professionals, and I think the EC is right now going into a process of reform. But I think in order to apply to the, let's say, market, and since the market has produced this disruptive technology that 70% of us say we use and are impacting our businesses, especially when it comes to young professionals, I think part of this change in FIDIC might be to accommodate this disruption as a whole. So what I'm trying to say is produce some guidance documents. Maybe part of the new training program could be including how to do diverse teams delivering medium-sized projects across boundaries and using cloud-based solutions. So that's one idea. And about the contracts of FIDIC, I also think that the survey results showing that 60% of us know the red book, the yellow book. These books, of course, are written in such a general sense that they can accommodate BIM or cloud computing, but there might be a good idea for the next contract editions to have actually some clauses that help manage across-border cloud design technology. So thank you for those questions. They were really good.
Cool. Thank you for the questions. Thanks for the answers. And at the rear of the room.
Good afternoon. My name is Bruno. I'm from Mozambique. I'm an architect, and I run an architecture engineering studio. What I wanted to say is just to give an address. From all the presentations, we could see that there's big and huge companies here presenting with 600,000, 150,000 collaborators. What I wanted to say and ask is that we are tiny companies and very small emerging, and the market is completely different today. And what really kills us on our countries is that these big companies, they want to spread, they want to work on our countries, they want to work on every cities, but you need to work with the companies and existing companies there. So my address is to invest and to empower the existing consultants and the existing young firms there. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruno.
Thank you. Take questions from the front.
Thank you very much. All protocol observed. The name is Albert. I'm from Uganda. Quick one to all the panelists. Excuse me. As far as retention of young professionals in companies is concerned, what is your experience in situations where perhaps there is no active project, should I say something like that, in which you can engage a particular young professional? In my experience, that is usually where the young professionals fall into the cracks and end up leaving companies and going to do other things rather than sticking with their professions. Thank you.
A comment to the statement?
Sure. Just a quick comment. One of the things we do in that case is we really try to implement a zipper effect. So we usually partner our senior professionals with new emerging leaders and take them to client meetings and that kind of stuff. So we find opportunities, bring them along to meetings, even if they're just an observer, and get them to meet with the clients and understand the process. It's been very effective. It's very good succession planning for our future leaders.
Thank you. We'll take one final question here from Aisha Nadal.
Well, it's more of a comment than a question. I just want to say how thoroughly impressed I've been from the beginning of Sunday with the Young Professionals Forum and the presentations, to the meeting with the EC, to the initiative and the thought process about inclusion and focusing on solutions, and how fast that came to fruition. From the moment of thinking, gathering information and coordination, and taking initiative and coming up with a vision and an action plan. So I am just thoroughly impressed, and I applaud you, and I look forward to seeing the results of your initiatives. Thank you.
So Jessica, you have some words in closing.
Thank you very much. Thanks to the panelists. Thanks for the questions. Just to reiterate, if you want to be part of the conversation, not necessarily just on the hashtag #CountMeIn, but in general conversations around the industry issues, YP issues, FIDIC issues at FIDIC, and social media is really the way to go. Thank you guys, and don't forget #CountMeIn. Thanks.
Thank you. Congratulations once again, Jessica Ramchand, Corey Wilson, Wafa Bala, Adam Piotrowski, and for all of you, and for all of our questioners and statementers here in the room.